Respected Dr. Ajay Kumar Singh, Shri Praveen Madhukar Pawar, Srimati Dr. Dharani Devi, and Shri M.H. Khan. Namaskara, salam and good evening. I wish I could speak in Kannada, but not too good. Like Shri Praveen Madhukar spoke such clear Kannada. So, the other languages I can speak is Hindi, Telugu, and Malayalam. So let's go by English today for the time being. It's nice to see young people sitting here. You are the future lawmakers in a way, and those who do the paripalan of law to the citizens of our country. Nice to see young minds, young faces. So you must be wondering that it's written Mumtaz Ali Khan and then also Shri M. Now, so before I start, let me explain the meaning of Shri M. Why I'm called Shri M. I'm happy to be called M. You can also drop the Shri, it doesn't matter. M is the first letter of my name with which I was born, Mumtaz Ali. Okay. When I was in the Himalayas as a young man of 19, and when my master, who belonged to the Natha Sampradaya, Maheshwarnath Babaji, initiated me into the system, he named me Madhukarnath. So that is also M. Above all, when people say M, I consider myself as a Manav, as a human being. If you say in Sanskrit, manushya. So, removing all other names and nomenclatures which are attached to somebody, first thing to understand is that I am a human being. All of us are. Now you're young people, you're going to take charge of police stations tomorrow. You know, even though there are higher level officers, when it comes to actual meeting and talking and interacting with the public, it's the people who are in the station, the inspectors, the sub-inspectors and the constables, who are actually key to this whole system. Because it depends on how you interact with the public. Very important. You are the nerve centers actually. Without you, at higher levels things cannot go on. They can direct you, which is why they're called directors and so on, but you are the link between the public and the police force. So, since you're going to tomorrow take charge after passing out from this beautiful place, I've come to the academy 2 or 3 times before. In some other batches also I've addressed when Dr. Ajay Kumar Singh was the Director of Recruitment and Training. I think it was somewhere else, here only, but the Police Academy. So, what I have noticed is, we all have a general impression about police inspectors. I found that it is all a wrong impression, because there are young, intelligent people who ask intelligent questions. So this is a hope that the public will benefit from your understanding and your regard for human life. So as I started by saying that I consider myself a Manav, first and foremost thing to remember, my opinion, is that all who come to you tomorrow are first human beings, then other things. They may belong to different professions, they may belong to different religions, they may belong to different categories, but what we should keep in mind foremost, from my understanding, is that all are human. And human beings have their problems, their follies, their defects, but they are human, essentially human. Religions may be different, but the essence of being is one. 1000 years ago, the Rig Veda declared, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. There is only one truth. The wise will call it by different names. So, this I would add a corollary to this. In the same way, human beings are one. You may have different names, different religions, different categories, different characters, but you're basically human. If this remains in your hearts when you're sitting there and interacting with the public and looking after a, a station, then I think things will happen properly. Now, I want to go back and quote something from the Gita. It's one of my favorite scriptures because something which was taught on the battlefield, not something which was taught sitting in an ashram away from all troubles, sitting in a quiet hermitage. No, it's supposed to have been taught on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. People often ask, how can such a long thing be taught? That's a thing we can discuss at length. But what we understand is in that battlefield, Krishna is talking to Arjuna and trying to put him on the right path. One thing he says, which we should always remember, is do your duty no matter what other people think. No matter you fail or you win. Do your duty, don't move from that path. This is very important. If you who are tomorrow going to man the stations think this way, I'm sure the public will be really relieved from many troubles. And well, in your uniform, in your position, sometimes it is necessary to enforce discipline. I understand, yes. And for when you enforce discipline, there also you should not move back saying, oh, I'm trying to be kind. Yes, if you're trying to be kind, then you're trying to make somebody better, even if it means a little bit of suffering, a little bit of pain. Discipline is essential. So, in this particular text called the Gita, Arjuna actually is refusing to fight, saying that there are relatives on the other side. So the teaching is relatives are not important, your duty is important. One. Second, Krishna makes Arjuna understand that you're actually not worried about the relatives, you are afraid of failure. You, in your mind, what goes on is if I fail, what will happen? He says, that's not the quality of a hero. A hero is one who does his duty, no matter he fails or no matter he wins. If 10 people among 100 practice that, the world will be a better place. Okay. Now we come to the definitions of a perfect person as given by Krishna in the Gita. Actually, Arjuna says, perfect, who is a perfect yogi? Arjuna's question to Krishna is, who is a perfect yogi? I would say, modify it a little and say, who is a perfect human being? Let's put it that way, not just a yogi. And Krishna gives 3 qualifications. He says, because the question starts with Arjuna asking Krishna, if somebody worships God this way, is it okay? Or if somebody worships God with form, is it okay? Or without form, is it okay? And so Krishna says to Arjuna, the mode of worship is not important. What is important, I consider a person to be the highest level developed person or a yogi, to be one who has these attributes, qualities, not the mode of worship. Mode of worship may differ depending on various factors, but attributes, the qualities which a person possesses. And the first quality, if you say in Sanskrit, I love this language, Samnyam Indriyagramam, one who has control over all his senses. Now, how is that important? Anger, jealousy, violence, they first start with emotions, sensory emotions. That is the root. So if somebody has some control, you can't say 100% control, we are all human beings, right? So at least some control over our emotions, or our senses, or our indriyas, not overeating, not undereating, not sleeping too much, not sleeping too little. The golden rule. If we can follow that, then says Krishna to Arjuna, such a person I consider to be a perfect person. Two, second quality, second attribute. Sarvatra sama buddhaya, which means can you keep tranquil in the midst of all circumstances? You know how we lead our lives? In the morning, if something unpleasant happens, I carry it through till evening. I cannot keep my mind steady. It is fluctuating between what good has happened and what bad has happened. And in the morning, it may be that I woke up and my wife scolded me. I mean, this is possible. We all know we are many married people here. Uh, so, would I show that anger to the person who comes to me with a case? Can I stay tranquil in the midst of all circumstances? Sarvatra samabuddhaya. Can I keep my mind tranquil? Now, for this, the practice of meditation is very useful. I heard that you also learn yoga here during your course, which is a very good thing. I would say that stress on pranayama, breathing techniques, and dhyana, which is meditation, these two things. And pranayama actually clears the pranic movement in your body so that you are able to deliberately keep your mind tranquil. If the Ida and the Pingala are working in proper balance, then the mind automatically becomes tranquil in the midst of all circumstances. Very easy to be tranquil sitting in a quiet place. Tranquil in the midst of all circumstances. When somebody comes running to the station and whole side bleeding, and he's also caught the other guy who hit him and says, how do you handle this? Can we be tranquil and unnecessarily not get emotionally agitated? Can we work from a very quiet standpoint? Very important for you. Sarvatra samabuddhaya. And then the last, which I think is not the least but the most important, which is sarvabhuta hite rata, welfare of all living beings in the heart. If the welfare of living beings is there in your heart, no matter what other things happen, you will finally do only what is correct and what is best. Now, when this happens, you will have to face various things: corruption, bribery, anger. Just now I was listening to somebody who had a cracked skull during an agitation. Somebody in your department. All these things can happen. But in spite of that, is it possible to think only good of others and try to bring about welfare of others rather than try to create problems for others? Problems are already created, that's why they come to you. And efficiency. Now, efficiency happens when one is learned how to have one-pointed attention, which is called Dharana, which culminates in Dhyana. We won't discuss Samadhi here, it's something else. But at least Dharana and Dhyana. Dharana is one-pointed attention. Unless and until there is one pointed attention, it won't be possible for one to function. Suppose I am sitting in the station, my attention should be in what I am doing there, not in what's happening in my house. The capacity to switch this in and off, on and off, is called Pratyahara. So, if you study the teachings of Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras, you will be able to understand that it is not meant for any particular denomination. Yoga is not meant for only for a particular religion or particular person. It's meant for general well-being of the human being. So when you understand this, and there are certain things which belong to a religion, but they are called Christian virtues. What are these Christian virtues? Not to cause injury to others, not to cause harm to others. So it doesn't matter which religion one belongs to, try to absorb the good qualities that are there in all religions. And if you can make that a practical way of living, I'm sure the world will be a better place. Your young people, I can see the enthusiasm that you have when you enter a new life. More than that, I don't want to say anything, except please remember that you are the key factor in the interaction between the public and the police. So you are representing one of the most important sections of society. So if you work this way, you'll probably get rid of all the wrong notions that people have about people who wear uniform. There are wrong notions. Accept it. We need to change it. And I'm sure that you will be able to bring about a great deal of change, because I have known personally many senior officers in the police department who are quite different from what you would think normally somebody would be, because this is the image we are given. Break those images. Interact with the public. Be good. Try to bring about something progressive. With this much, I would like to wind up today's talk. If there is any interaction, I'm allowed to have some 10 minutes of interaction. So if you have anything to discuss, we have about 10 minutes. Please put up your hands and tell me, and we can discuss them. I won't promise that I will have an answer to your question, because I haven't heard the question. I don't know everything. So if you ask me and if I think I can answer, then we'll discuss it. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable experiences and thoughts. Before we proceed, I now request Honorable Chief Guest to interact with the 45th batch PSI probationaries. The one with the questions can raise your hands and ask questions to the sir. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. Sir, my question is that is it possible, no, sir, is it necessary to have a belief in God or Supreme Being in order to be a spiritual person? Or if not, is it possible for an atheist to be a spiritual person? Thank you, sir.
Good question. Very good question. Actually, to be a good person, please sit. To be a good person and to lead a good life need not necessarily mean that you should have a religious belief. Now, now we have to see what is the meaning of religion and what is the meaning of religiosity. Religiosity is to lead a good life, to be kind to others, to do good to humanity. If these qualities are there, I think you need not be um, formally affiliated to a religion. These itself are religious qualities. So I wouldn't say even religious, I would say spiritual qualities. So let's make a distinction between just religion, bereft of spirituality, only rituals and so on. And spirituality, which is also along with religion, or spirituality which can stand by itself. I say, I will only do good to others, I will not cause injury to others. Doesn't matter what God thinks about, because I don't even know if God is there, I don't know, right? But if that becomes such that because there is no God, I will do whatever I like, I will destroy others, then it's not a good pattern for humanity. So I don't think you should necessarily have a belief. If you have belief in goodness and if you have faith in yourself, I think that would be sufficient to start with. That is my opinion.
Good evening, sir. So my question is, at the age of 19, most of the people they'll be in confusion like what degree we have to take and all those things. But you chose the spiritual line. What made you to do so?
That's also a good question. See, there, sir, there is hope. Yes, you're right. At the age of 19, usually people are looking for professions, they are confused, they don't know what to do, how to choose a career. What you should understand is that each human being has a certain quality and a certain background which drives him to what he's going to do next. In my case, since at the age of 8, I already had a contact with a great yogi, my mind turned towards that. That's one thing. And when I turned 19, I was kind of raring to be free, to get out. I thought I was in some kind of a cage. It was a good cage, golden cage. But cage made of gold or cages made of wood are the same, they're cages, right? So I had this, somebody would have gone into revolution and become a leftist or something. My thoughts were that I would revolt and go in the spiritual direction. This is what happened to me. And therefore, I went off to the Himalayas. I always, people ask me, I say that my full name is Mumtaz Ali Khan. At the age of 19, some Khans went off to Bollywood. One fellow went off to the Himalayas. So, what can you do about this? It's one's nature, how the mind takes you, where it takes you, how you move. Depends, because everybody doesn't have the same thoughts, the same kind of. But it is true that 19, as you said, is a very sensitive age when one decides what is to be done. And I decided that the best thing for me, even if that would have disappointed my parents, it did actually. I would go off to the Himalayas. There was something beckoning me from there. I can't define this. I was pulled towards the Himalayan heights, so I went and spent some.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm not saying you should all go after him. Then who will look after the public? Yeah.
On behalf of the probationers, sir, sir, January end they will be having their POP and then they will go to a district training, and after that they will get their posting, sir. So, like, I have already completed half of my service. Sir has been in police service, sir. So, I want you to tell them, like, police service is a very stressful job. Day in and day out, there's a lot of stress. It comes, I mean, it sometimes it become unbearable. I mean, I learn on my own how to cope up with stress. Sir, I want you to guide the probationers about how they should manage this stress through, you said about pranayam yoga, but spiritually how you have to practical aspect about how to manage the stress in the day-to-day life, so they can have a very good work and balance in their life, so that then they'll be very happy and then they will have a meaningful life, good quality of life.
Sir, as you have yourself confessed, it's not so easy. We all have to go through this grind, and especially this kind of work. It's actually the English word used is policing. Now, it's not easy, I understand. However, if you don't do it, who will do it? This should be the question we should ask ourselves. If I get stressed when I am handling somebody else who is violent and stressed, how will I handle this person? So I should try to think, we should try to think that we are in their place. Not that we are separately sitting in another place where nothing can touch us. If this happens, then instead of feeling stressed out about it, stress is one thing and hard work is another. There are two things. Try to separate the word stress from being involved in something. I think that is the way to look at it. Because if you're fully involved, say that, look, that person is stressed, he is under trouble, so he has come to me because he thinks I am going to. Look, a person like me has this problem every day. It's not only that you are in the police department, you will be surprised to know how many people come to me because they want some kind of peace and happiness. And I get 200 to 300 emails every day. You'll be surprised what are the things that people ask. The world is a very difficult place. People suffer a lot. When you see that, I feel, oh my God, I am not suffering like them. So let me offer something to them, which I can. So keep this in mind, and if you work, I think you'll be able to do it. Your officer himself has gone through it and he has come out, I think, unscathed. So you can also do that. But as I said, it is a good thing to learn a little bit of meditation, little pranayam, so that when you come home, you can sit down and practice a little bit so that your mind is settled down and you're able to handle it tomorrow better. That is important to do. If you're not religiously inclined, at least you can practice meditation and pranayam. If you're religiously inclined, do light a lamp and say, tomorrow is going to come, help me out, or something like that. So there is no shortcut. There is no shortcut. We have to deal with it as it comes. I can tell you that maybe I face much more difficult problems than probably you are going to face at this young age. The difference is that you are directly interacting with the public, which I am not. That difference is there. So it may be much more difficult for you, but then we have to do it. If we don't do it, who's going to do it? This should be the question. Who's going to do it? Who is going to remedy the faults? Who is going to look at? If this thought occurs in my mind, even under the most difficult circumstances, I feel I'm doing good, so let me do it no matter what happens. I think that is the only way we can think about it. So 10 minutes are very long.
ಸರ್ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನಾನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲೇ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಸರ್. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ನೇಚರ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಟೈಮ್. ಅದು ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ದಿನ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್. ನಾವು ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾಕಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಆದಂತ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಮಗೆ ಆ ಥರ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡೋ ನೇಚರ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಬಾರ್ದಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು? ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು 4 ಮಾತು.
That diminishing should not be allowed. We should continue. So today, when I started out with my life, I was, after coming back from the Himalaya, I was 24. I'm continuing. Now I am 73. You may not think I am 73 except for my grey hair. Yeah? That is because of lifelong practice of yoga and proper discipline in food and keeping the mind quiet and tranquil. That's the only answer I have. However, my suggestion is you should not allow that to diminish. Try, keep it for your life. Even when you are so old that you cannot move, then also think good for others, even if you cannot do good. It's a thought process, it is in the mind. Don't give up on that. If young people like you give up, then who's going to do it? Then young people like us should work. Who can do it? So don't allow that enthusiasm to go away. I know why it goes off, because we find that there are no returns. Right? So what you do should be its own return. Don't expect anything from anybody. In this world, nobody will give us anything. But if we have, we should give. Keep that attitude. Then I think you will escape from that feeling of diminishing of the attitude to help others. It's as a joy to help others. Why should we think otherwise? Suppose somebody come to you with a little child. The child is not well, is going to die, and you help and the child becomes okay. The joy that the child feels, the smile that the child feels should reflect in our smile. Then we will not think of returns, we will only think of giving.
Thank you, sir.
Not easy, but possible.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. Sir, in day-to-day life of policing, we come across so many criminals that may be juveniles and rowdies, goondas. How can we influence them to do good while we interacting in police station? Is there any provisions in philosophy?
Now, I can't say how to deal with goondas because I didn't have much experience in this matter. But I can tell you one thing. People sometimes who come to me, I can tell only from my experience. Some of them are not really good people. I mean, in the normal sense of the term. Everybody is good in some way. They're not good people. There are people who might have committed crimes. Not like coming to the police station. People come to me. Last resort. People who have done black marketing. People have done, they come. Now, what do I do? Do I reject them? At one time, I used to think, let's not meet these guys, let's get away from them because we can't reform them. Then, one day, my master, Maheshwarnath Babaji, told me that if you discard people like that, what is your use? It's the sick that need a doctor. If somebody is not sick, what is the need of a doctor there? No need. So, consider yourself not as people who enforce law, but also as those who treat illness. You're like doctors in some way. So when some people come to you who you think are terrible fellows, treat them at par. Well, if they don't listen, use the danda a little bit, that's all right. But what I mean to say is, we can't help it sometimes. Don't think that they're bad. Nobody is bad. Valmiki wrote the Ramayana. He was a dacoit before. Right? So there is a spark of goodness in all. Keeping that in mind, deal with them as you would want to deal. Because there is no way they will learn otherwise. So sometimes you have to. Sometimes at least you have to pretend to be violent. Don't be really violent in the heart. Because every person who comes has some spark somewhere in their hearts. Keep that in mind. Otherwise, find out how to deal with them in a practical way as much as you can. I know that in the station you will face this problem. I face this problem in my consulting. It's a little different, of course, but and I somehow have managed to handle thinking that if they are sick, they need a doctor. Hmm? Also be kind, because circumstances turn people into goondas sometimes. Thank you.